Okay, so who am I besides a guy that doesn't know how to turn off mute, and why should you listen to him? I've been doing digital marketing and website design for a very long time. I've had a lot of different clients that kind of when I got started, really a broad range of companies I was doing work with. And it wasn't, I guess I really wanted to niche down and find an industry that I really liked. And I was having good results with fencing and decking companies. So that's why I decided to make the transition and really niche down and find just fencing and decking businesses and work with them to really expand their reach and get more business, make more money. Um, but that's really it. The people that I've met so far are just excellent to talk to, work with. It's very hard work doing fencing and decking, and I've also done the fencing side and put up some very big fences on my farm and help with friends and stuff. But I know how how much work it can be, and really respect it. So that's just a little tidbit on that too. Okay, so fence and deck marketers, we only work with fencing and decking business owners. Of course, some businesses that do these services also do others. Some are kind of really a lot of things. You see roofers or different kinds of remodelers, but in general, we only work with businesses that have that component to them. So as long as they're doing fencing or decking, those are the types of businesses we want to work with. But it's not as if we ignore the other services if they do those as well. But that's what we do every single day, all day. Our whole team is just designated to helping these types of businesses, and we do a lot of different digital marketing services. But the biggest ones are website development, SEO, of course. We do a lot of pay-per-click advertising. So that can be Google Ads, Google local service ads, and also a lot of social media and reputation management. Reputation management meaning your Google reviews and really reviews online anywhere is just so important these days because pretty much everybody is going to be reading your reviews before they decide to use you. So if you have terrible ones or just not that many, the guy that has a higher average, 5-star average, or just more of them, could put you at a disadvantage. And then we also do Facebook and Instagram ads as well. Okay, so we have what we call 3 principles of our omnipresent marketing system, and those are going to be all about getting seen everywhere, or as many places as possible. You want to make it so if somebody's looking for a specific type of fence or deck, if they're looking online, you want to make it so they can find you depending on their search preferences. And rather than just one strategy, even if it's just SEO or Google Ads, people will have different preferences. So it's important to show up as many places as possible. The first one is going to be maximize opportunities. So the more places you're showing up, the better or the more opportunities you're going to have and the more people that are going to actually find your business and reach out. And then the brand impressions, I'm going to go in a little bit more detail on this, but this is going to be all about finding those people telling Google that you have an established brand and the importance they put behind brand impressions is really strong right now. They want to show strong brands to their users. So I'm gonna go into some detail of how to make a stronger brand and a better impression with Google throughout this here too. And then, the ultimate most important thing, you want to make sure you're maximizing these conversions. So people are finding you on Google or social media, they're going to see your page, and it's great to have all of these set up. But if it's not set up to convert and basically sell them, it's not going to maximize your efforts. So those are the 3 main systems of omnipresence. But a lot of people, this question always comes up: is does SEO still matter? Because Google is always having these different changes, and it definitely seems like they want to go more towards ads because, of course, they make money off the ads versus SEO agencies that are doing the work for their clients. But it absolutely does matter, and I'm going to show you some statistics in a second of just how much it really continues to dominate, even though people have their hesitancies. Can't talk today. But absolutely, by the statistics and what we've seen with clients, it's very, very effective. Okay, so just want to give an example of kind of what it looks like, as I'm sure a lot of people everyone here has seen Google and what the results pages look like, but a lot of times it looks different. And that's by design because Google wants to show the best possible results based on what they're searching. So right here, this just says, it's kind of hard to read, I apologize, but I just typed in fencing companies Baltimore, which is where I'm from. And you can see there's local service ads up here. That's these top 3. And then those are basically going to be pay per lead. So somebody clicks on that and fills out a form or gives them a call, clicks on the number basically. They're only going to charge you if it's a legitimate lead and one that matches the criteria that you have. So you can tell them, you only do fence installs. So if somebody contacts you for a fence repair, you can get reimbursed. So it gets pretty good with that. The Google guaranteed is they'll basically do they'll verify you and do a check to make sure your background is safe before they recommend you to going out to other people, going out to people to do an estimate for their fence. And then Google Ads here, this is also really critical, but this is going to be cost per click. So people will pay you basically to click on their listing, and it can be quite a bit cheaper, but you have to be careful that you're targeting the right areas and you're not showing these ads for the wrong keywords or the wrong areas. But today's focus, or what's highlighted in red, this one here on the right, a normal Google search result, it will be below underneath this. So I just put it over here because it was too tall. I couldn't fit it on the slide, but this is what we're going to be focusing all about today, is SEO and getting ranked here. So this is the map pack right here, the Google map pack. And then these are the organic listings to the right. So out of these 2 right here, so the map pack and the organic website listings, also these are just based off your website, not your Google listing like over here. That's going to get 73% of all the clicks. So 73% of people skip past these ads and come down here and click on one of these, and 67% click on either the top 3 in the map pack or the top 2 organic results. So just these numbers alone just shows you how their preferences basically, everyone wants to see reviews, and they know ads can not give them the best results if they're not done properly. So they like to go here. They like to read the reviews and what people have to say before they make a decision. What is really can be frustrating for sure in the website results here is there's very big sites like Angie's List, Home Advisor, Better Business Bureau, Yelp. They spend millions and millions and millions of dollars for their SEO to get them ranked at the top of Google, and basically take those leads and sell them to the companies, the small businesses that are already trying to rank in the map pack. But the good thing is, if you do have the map pack rankings, these companies can't rank there. So you can really take advantage of that. And, basically you're going to be ahead of those companies, and that's where most of the clicks go anyways. So it's just very, very important. But you can outrank Angie's List. It's very common to do that as well. It's just, that's their whole business model, and they're very, very large corporations. So you just got to be, do your SEO correctly. And in these next slides, I'll show you what it means to do that. But you absolutely can beat them. Okay. So this is just an example of a business and the leads they're getting. So right here, just more numbers to show how much local SEO and SEO matters. These are 75% are coming just from Google and the organic listings, and then quite a bit less from paid and Google AdWords. So it just shows you can do ads, and they do work really well, and they're a great investment. It's just, by the numbers, you want to have your SEO dialed in, because that's where the majority is going to go. All right, kind of already touched on that. So paid advertising alone, basically, if you just do that, you can get more specific in your searches, and it can help you in areas that SEO can't. But in general, you want to make sure that core group around your business office location is taken care of, and people are able to find you there, because those are going to be the closer jobs, ones that are more convenient for you. And paid advertising I'll get into in a second, but it has its uses as well. Okay, so here are the 4 biggest changes for Google and SEO. I'm going to go through all of them in pretty good detail, but detailed and well-written content is huge. You want to make sure you have very good quality backlinks. You don't want to take any kind of spammy links from websites that aren't relevant to your industry, because that can really hurt your rankings. And then you want to make sure you're using a real physical office. Google's cracking down on this as well. And then site speed is very huge and something that we usually find can be improved on most websites. And I'll show you how to do that as well. But okay, so detailed and well-written content, of course, is very important. And I'm going to show you how you should set up your website to not only have the content written in a certain way, but also which pages you should be adding to. So every single type of service that you offer should be have its own page of content. So a great example for fencing companies would be if you do specific types of fence. So say you do wood, vinyl, different types of privacy fence. You really want to make sure that those are separate pages on the website and have 800 to 1,000 words of content, because that's what Google wants to see. It's great to have a nice, pretty website with nice pictures, and you should have those things, but you never want to have just like one sentence on a page and just pictures, because Google's not going to understand that, and they're basically not going to rank you because they're not really sure what the page is about. And if you think about it, just to kind of give you a way to think about how Google thinks and how they rank websites based off content. If you're trying to put in, say a vinyl fence and you've never done it before, if you have one option of just a piece of paper that has, some bullet points on it, very brief, and then you have a whole book of somebody that took the time to write down every little thing about the process, how to pick the materials. Book is going to have obviously a lot more pages in it, pictures, things like that. Which one would be the more obvious choice? And of course, it would be the book. And that's how Google basically thinks. They think the pages with more content are going to solve the user's problem better. So the more content you have that's referencing whatever they're searching. So if it's a vinyl fence page, it needs to mention vinyl fence plenty of times. That's going to get ranked higher than somebody that just has one sentence, is basically how it works. So what you want to do is every type of service that you do, think about it very hard and use tools that I'll go over in a second to figure out which ones are being searched in your cities, and then make those pages and write them well and use unique content. You never want to copy a competitor because Google will monitor that as well. Also, so most companies serve 25 to 50 mile radius, some farther, but just as an example, we'll say 25 to 50 mile radius. You want to have a separate page for each city as well. So not just every service that you have, you want to decide which cities you're willing to travel to, or neighborhoods and counties, and have a separate page for each of those, and make them unique content. Because once you do that, say you're using the example of a Baltimore fencing company. If there are, the neighboring cities around here would be like Columbia or Catonsville, Ellicott City, all cities that have a lot of houses in them. So you would want to have a separate page titled, Fence Company, Ellicott City, Fence Company, Catonsville. Every single page should be separated out and be accessible through the website. And once you do that, you can imagine your net basically is going to expand greatly, especially if you're not in a city with a ton of people in it, or of cities that maybe you're in a suburb outside of a main city. You can target these other areas and get ranked in there as well. All right, let me take that away. Sorry. Okay, so the actual content that you write, it needs to satisfy two different people. So Google, and then also the users. So you want to have great written content that Google loves and has all those keywords in there and is long enough. But of course, you want to sell the customer once they get to the site too. So you really need to kind of speak their language and speak to their fears. well, for example, you want to have it's good to have some technical knowledge of like how the process works and what they can expect, the pros and cons of the different types of fencing material they have so they can kind of decide, and have some images, that's from past work. If you don't have those images, you can find some online to say, when they're looking for it, they could say, hey, this was done and it's exactly what I want. They can call you or write a website inquiry and say, this is what I want. It makes the process a lot easier versus the guy that doesn't have any images, and it's going to make it harder for them to decide exactly what they're looking for. But also, you want to speak to their fears and their considerations. So, anything that's likely going to make a home buyer uneasy when they're going through trying to figure out who should do their fence. It's an expensive project. You want to have a good understanding of what they could be concerned about and really put them at ease through the content that you write. And then also, your contact form is really, really important because some people will give you a call, others can't. Maybe they're just checking at work or whatever, but they can't call that second. You can have a contact form to basically give them that ability to write out a message and tell you what they want that way. And the last thing that's really important is to have reviews. So as you can imagine, if you have a wood fencing vinyl, every separate page works as its own sales page, if you will. So you want to have, if they land on the wood fence, the vinyl, the home page, wherever they land, you want to make sure that page has all the right content, but also has these different sales things like testimonials. So you can pull in using widgets. You can copy the testimonials. We like to use a widget. So we pull the 5-star reviews and it updates, which is just a piece of code that goes in the website and pulls these reviews. But that's what people want to see. They're going to inevitably check your reviews. So if you can make it easier for them that way, that's going to help you out. As far as a backlink goes, if you don't know what a backlink is, the best way to like understand it is if you've been on a website that has, a paragraph of text and then it has a couple words are highlighted in blue and you can click it and then go to another website, that's a backlink. And if it goes to your website from another website, that's a backlink for your site. And that's a really big part of Google's algorithm. They want to make sure that if people are talking about your website, then it adds authority to it basically, and will help you out with the rankings that way. But of course, there are people that kind of manipulated the system, and a big release from Google was Penguin. And Penguin basically said, they went and looked at all these websites that were selling links or just giving links to everyone, even though they weren't relevant. And all these big websites that had links from these other sites, they basically said, okay, well, we know you just forced this, it's not natural. And they don't give basically the same amount of authority to those links as they did. And they actually crashed a lot of sites that were doing this. So Penguin was a really big update, and it caused a ton of problems for a lot of website owners. But basically, the most important thing now is to find links that are from relevant sites and not from just any site you can ever find. And there's tools that will show you how to do this, will show you if you do have low quality links. We use SEMrush for this, and there's some others as well, but really, really important. And if you do or are concerned, it might be a good idea to just do this regardless. If you have somebody that can help you with it, or if you need our help, you just basically want to check and make sure you don't have a lot of these, because there is a way to remove them and tell Google, like, we don't want these links. We didn't build them, and that's called disavowing. So you can use their tools to disavow these links and tell them, we want nothing to do with them. Don't penalize us for them. And that's something that we do ongoing to make sure, because links just pop out of nowhere and you can get a backlink to your website without even trying to do it, and can be something really spammy and hurt your website. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about related to links is the anchor text. And that's going to be based off of basically The anchor text is kind of what I was explaining in the beginning, where if you have a paragraph of text and then part of it's blue and you can click it, whatever is in blue is the actual anchor text. So you don't want to build links with the same anchor text over and over again. So what people used to do as well before Penguin, I mean, they still probably do it quite a bit, but they would have all of their links, you know, if it's a fencing company in Baltimore, they would have all these links that were fence company, Baltimore, Maryland. So it wouldn't even fit into the content that the link was in, but they just thought that as long as we have that in the anchor text, that's going to tell Google this page is about that. They caught on to that and penalize you for it. So now it's really important to diversify that. Most of the time you want to have just your business name or just, you know, website as the link to go to your site. You can add these different things, those types of links like fence company, Baltimore, Maryland. You just want to make sure it's natural. So fence company in Baltimore, Maryland, you can have some sites like that as well. You just don't want to overdo it. Is basically what how it works with this. So you need to have a real physical office. Now there's basically, since the Pigeon update, Google Maps has been cracking down on fake fake listings. So people figured out they could have, you know, UPS stores or PO boxes, virtual offices, basically an address that wasn't even real, and they would create a listing for it just so they could be they could rank in whatever city they were trying to. So they didn't have a listing in a popular city, they could just create these virtual offices or whatever and rank that way. Google, of course, caught on to that, and you know, they basically made it so you can't do this, and you have to have an actual physical location and something that's, you know, real. Your actual office, or can use home addresses now, but it's a little bit more complicated sometimes. But you know, it has to be an actual address. But what's very useful is if you do have multiple addresses, then you can take advantage of that without any issues. So say you're in, I'm just going to keep using the Baltimore example, but you have a Baltimore office and an Annapolis office. They're about 35 minutes away, and they're I believe, the two biggest cities in Maryland, two of the most well-known. But if you wanted to rank in both of those cities, if you typed in fence company in either one of those or vinyl fence, it's going to show you completely different results in the map pack. So the only way to conquer that with SEO is to have a different office. And that's a strategy that's used all the time by businesses. And if it's done right, it's completely legitimate and something we highly recommend. You just got to make sure you have that separate office and it's real. Okay. But since every type of digital marketing has some setbacks, you know, nothing's perfect. You know, that's why we recommend using multiple forms of it. So not just SEO, especially if you're a bigger business, you know, and you want to get a lot more jobs, you have a lot more crews, you really should be taking advantage of Google ads, SEO, or Facebook ads, because those ads are going to actually allow you to go over to these areas that you want to rank in. So if you're in Baltimore and you want to go to Annapolis, you can run ads in Annapolis and get leads that way. And it's going to really allow you to broaden your net. It's just the thing with Google ads is, of course, you have to pay for those positions, whereas SEO, you don't. And fewer clicks go to those ads. But everybody has their search preferences. Some people will click the ads, some won't. So if you're showing in both positions too, it just kind of adds to your brand, and people will take note of that and remember it, you know, versus the one that's just listed in one place. All right. Last thing. So you want to have the physical address that's real, but it's also, you will get better results if you have, if you show the address. So you can have what's called a service area business with your Google listing. Excuse me. But if you have it hidden, so you can hide the address, basically, you can put in the address, send it to Google. Once it's verified, then you can hide that address so everyone doesn't see it. It's just hidden from Google. Once you do that, it's basically going to make it so you have worse results. You're not going to rank as well. You can still rank. It's absolutely possible. But in general, it's been shown to have much, you're at a disadvantage basically versus the people that have it. Your site speed is very, very critical now. And this is a huge thing Google's rolling out right now, is they want to show only fast websites if they can. And the faster your website loads, that's going to improve your rankings. Because as you can imagine, if you're, a lot of times we're in a hurry, we're searching something on Google and we type in something, we click the first result, the second or third, whatever we think is best, and it just takes forever. You're just sitting there like, how is this possible? How can this thing be so slow? More often than not, people will bounce off of that and go to the next one because they don't want to deal with it. And Google records that, and they'll actually, over time, it might not decrease your ranking right away, more likely won't. But if that consistently happens over and over again, then they will lower your ranking. Because basically Google knows that speed is going to be critical to users, and they're not concerned about the business owners that do SEO. They're concerned about the users and them getting their information quicker. So that's going to be the reason behind all their algorithm changes. And you really need to make sure your website is mobile friendly. So everybody has a desktop friendly version website, but if it's not optimized for mobile and doesn't have all these things I'm going to go through when I go through the website optimization stuff, you're going to be losing out on a ton of traffic. I think it's like 53%, last time I checked, maybe 56 of all traffic is mobile. So if you have a website where you got to pinch and zoom, you're going to have issues for sure. And Google just doesn't want to see that. They're going to rank you lower for sure. Google created a tool to rank the speed of your website and the overall performance called Google Page Speed Insights. You can go to this website here and just type that in, then enter your URL for your website, and it'll give you some scores. There's a separate one for mobile and desktop, and give you some tips for how to update that. But I do have some steps in here for how to update that as well. So actually, here are some of them here. So here are some of them now. So this is going to get really technical, and I'm not going to go into too much detail. It's really something that you should give to a coder or your development team for the website. If you have questions, feel free to ask me about them, send me an email, whatever. But these are just different things that your website developer needs to be doing. So compressing everything, minifying their files, so just making them less heavy, so it doesn't take so long to read it. Redirects are if you say you get rid of a website page, but you never really want. So if you say you get rid of a website page on your site, you delete it. Now, if somebody goes to that website page, it's going to show a 404 error, which you don't want. So you add a redirect from that old URL to a new one that makes sense. And that could just be to the home page if nothing relates. You still want to have that, but sometimes people will have multiple redirects and it creates a huge mess going from different pages it just causes a lot of issues. But the big one here that's kind of, isn't really as technical is the images. So if you have images displayed on your website, you don't want to take an image from, say, your phone that you just took of a job on your, iPhone 13 and throw it up there, because the file is so huge, it's going to slow down the website. So that image could probably be like a desktop image on a big computer screen. What it's showing on, just a tiny little image on a website. So you can shrink that image down to be the actual size displayed on the website. And that's going to make it so it's not unnecessary heavy lifting for the server to load that website page. And a really important one is going to be your website hosting. There's tons of hosting options out there. We use a couple different ones, but Flywheel is one, WP Engine. Really, there's a ton out there. But what I would not recommend is using GoDaddy. I've heard nothing but terrible things with them, and they got security issues and all kinds of stuff. So if you're using them, I would recommend changing it up. But in general, if you do pick a new host, like I said, I have recommendations if you need them, but you could just talk to these providers and see what their Google page speed insight scores are and what they predicted will be with your site. And you can kind of pick it based off of that. All right, so what else has changed with SEO over the past couple of years? In general, things that were done 2 years ago, some things will work, some won't. But nowadays, you really want to make sure you're catering to the user overall. So something that's going to get people to stay on the page and actually solve their problems. If you have that in your mind when you're building things, that's going to be very, very helpful. And it's going to pay off in the long run. And the not so long run, it should help pretty quickly. But that's what it's all about. Google, they want to deliver the best result to anybody searching on Google. So they're going to be checking for that. But there's a lot of little things behind the scene called off-page or technical optimization. I'll go through in a second. The technical was this here, some of this stuff, but there's some others as well. But it's all just a lot of little things that you have to do to get these rankings properly. Google does have Core Web Vitals. That's basically a system to decide if your website's performing properly. So you need to pay attention to that. And then this product reviews one. So this it's not that important to fencing and decking. It's just related to product reviews. So I'll skip over that. Okay, so this is kind of what I want to show you, just to show how often Google updates their algorithm, and some are going to be more important than others. So some might not even really relate to your business, but as they roll it out, you could have ranking fluctuations and could freak you out thinking you're tanking when really it'll just it'll come back eventually. But with this, I just want to show you one that was in 2019, so the site diversity update. This one was all about removing multiple listings for the same domain. So this one, more often than not, I think helped people because basically companies like Yelp or HomeAdvisor, Better Business Bureau, they were ranking multiple times in the top 5 on Google. So 2 different pages of their website were ranking, and Google kind of put an end to that. And it still sometimes comes up, but in general, it reduces that tremendously, which is good for small businesses because they have a better chance to rank there. However, if you're ranking 2 pages before, then it's not going to help you out. But overall, it's good for small businesses. So as a whole, all of these updates are really just about taking note of websites that aren't doing the things that they want and downgrading them, and improving the rankings of the ones that are. The new ranking factors, some not so new, but they're just very, very critical to pay attention to. So you have your click-through rate, and that's going to be the rate at which people actually click through or click on your website when it's displayed. So if they call it an impression. So if they type into something on Google and it pops up with 10 results and all 10 are on your page, or you look at all 10, your click-through rate will be affected whether or not they click on yours versus a competitor. So Google heavily weighs that, because if somebody types in, I'm not being very original, but I'll just keep going with the example of fence company in Baltimore, and they go past your listing and click on somebody else's, they're going to think, okay, this one is more about fence companies in Baltimore. So they're going to make note of that, and over time we'll probably change the rankings if it happens enough. Also scroll rate, and time on page. So if they click on your listing and they start scrolling and they're reading and they're there for a while, that's going to be a positive signal to Google, because it seems like you're solving their problem. They're not inside your brain, so they can't tell if it's like the perfect solution. They just know that if you're there longer versus another site, then chances are you have good stuff on the page. That's very closely tied to bounce rate. So bounce rate is just how often people are just jumping off your site immediately. So if your site's slow and they just don't feel like waiting, they bounce off it, or it loads and it doesn't make sense to what they wanted, they can click off. That's going to be recorded as bounce rate. So you want to keep that very low, or as low as possible. And branding. So this is definitely newer. Google wants to see brands display. They want to have established brands displaying information. So if you are consistently posting good content that's helping users and answering questions along with your service pages, so these things could be blog posts that are answering different things about permits or whatever it may be relating to fencing or decking. Once you have enough content and people are basically viewing your content enough, and also if you have a lot of links, like your website is on a bunch of other different websites, that's going to establish more of a brand presence, and that's going to make it easier to rank your content, once you have an established brand. And citations. So in order to get your business ranked higher on Google, one of the first things that we do is update and fix your citations. So a citation is going to be wherever your business NAP, your name, address, and phone number are listed on the internet. So a citation could be Facebook or Yelp or HomeAdvisor, Angie's List. There's hundreds of these sites, or thousands out there. And the more times you have links or your information listed on these websites, and it's the same information as your website or your Google listing, Google's going to say, okay, this is probably the right information and we can trust to rank this higher. So that's kind of like a fact-checking situation or deal for them. Also, reviews. Every time you do a job, you should be sending out a text or at least an email asking for a review. There are tools to say, if you get a 5-star review or a 4-star, give them the option to post it to Google. Otherwise, just take the review and catalog it. That makes it so somebody doesn't post a 1 or 2 or 3-star review and it brings down your average. The relevant links. So when you're building these backlinks, you want to make sure it's something, either a citation or a relevant website in some way. So getting links from, a fencing or decking website or home improvement website, anything that fits is what you're going to want to look for, versus just a random website that has just just talking about something completely unrelated. Google's gonna, they're not gonna see that as important as these other ones. So here is kind of the new SEO formula. Some of these we've touched on, but I'm just going to go through it and wanted to have a separate slide so you can look at it as a whole. So you have to have a great website. You don't want a website that's very old, looks just very dated. If people are looking around for a new fencing or decking company, the one that has a great looking website is going to catch their eye first. Nobody is going to want to see one that's from 20 years ago or something. They're going to pick, more than likely, or give the benefit of the doubt to the best looking website, as long as it fits their needs. So having a great looking website, and then pages for every type of service. So whatever you offer should be listed on the website, and a user should be able to find it and read about it and then contact you. So you don't want to have hidden services or things that you don't even offer listed out there. And also the cities, as we already touched on, you want to have a separate page for each city. Okay, so when you're looking at keywords that you should basically tailor your content around, you want to have a keyword research tool. There's some free, some paid. Google Keyword Planner, that's one that's free from Google. And SEMrush, Ahrefs, Ubersuggest. Ubersuggest is free. SEMrush and Ahrefs, I think they have free versions, but we use their paid versions to get a lot of the better stuff. But you want to make sure that you have the list of keywords, you write the content based off of those keywords, and you're not just writing content for the sake of writing content. It should be very targeted. And also the geo modifier. So this a good example of this is, you're trying to rank for a fence company in another city that you do work in, but it's not your home city. So for here, fence company Annapolis, the title, the header, everything, or both of those should be fence company in Annapolis, Maryland, or something related, just including those keywords. And if you add a service page, vinyl fencing in whatever your home city is, you could have a page for that. The online reviews, you want to make sure Google is set. That's the most important, but getting good Yelp reviews, Facebook reviews, others are important. So if you're just killing it on Google reviews, you can go to some of these other ones too. Excuse me. Citations, I said, so you want to make sure you fix all of these right from the start, and then any that you don't have, consistently build those over time. So every month, add new ones. Google is going to see that you're adding links, that the website's being, has some activity, and that's what they want. Once you have all your pages, you have a great foundation of service pages and city pages. You want to make sure that you're posting blog content. So again, not very original, but if it was a vinyl fence page, since a lot of people want that these days, instead of just having your vinyl fence page, you could have a separate blog about, ways to, how do you clean your vinyl fence? Like, can you power wash it? Things like that, maintenance of a vinyl fence, anything that you can talk about vinyl fence, because that's just going to add as a supporting page to your main vinyl fence page that you want to rank. And then once you have in that blog post, you want to, every time you see vinyl fence, or not every time, but a couple times, whenever you mention vinyl fence, hyperlink that, make the anchor text vinyl fence, and then link back to the main vinyl fence page. Links. So you want to make sure, these are a little bit more complicated, but sometimes you have to do outreach and ask other websites for permission to write content on their website. Citations act as backlinks too. It's just a little bit less authoritative. And then paid search is a great tool on its own, but you can also check to see what people are paying for in your areas. So if one keyword has is a very high cost per click, you can say, okay, let me implement that to my SEO and optimize my pages for that keyword. That's going to make it so you're building pages based off of the right keywords, because if people are paying a ton of money to rank in the ads, then it must be valuable. Okay. This image is very blurry. I apologize, but this is just an example of the citations. So if you can see here, so Facebook, Twitter, there's a bunch you'll recognize and then a ton you won't. Dex knows, might not, Axiom. All these websites should have your business NAP on them and have it be correct as the same as your website and your Google listing. So Google will check all these different sites, and there's actually a lot more than these here, but check these sites, make sure it matches, and if it does, then they feel safe about that and they can go on other ranking factors. All right, so the on-site optimization, this is going to be any kind of optimization related to the content, the specific content on the website. And you want to make sure, so in a title tag, let me see here, I'll just do a quick search. So you want to make sure, see here, you see Angie's List. Internet connection. So you want to make sure they have a keyword here. So Baltimore's best fencing company, that looks good. And then you see here, this is the title, fencing company serving Baltimore. So that's what you're going to see for the title and the H1, and then relevant keywords throughout. See if they do that. So they have, fence installation. They combine it here, which you could separate it out. I'm not really sure if this company, how many areas they're in, or if they have multiple offices, but that's what you want to do. You want to have those keywords in the H1, H2, H3, and these are just HTML tags. So that's another thing for a coder. Not overly complicated for just these, but those tags need to be formatted. You only want one H1. You can have multiple H2 and H3, but they should include the keywords you want to rank for. and the meta description. So that's going to be this here, the meta description. So each website page should have a good meta description that talks about whatever, they're trying to sell. Offer exceptional fencing services throughout Baltimore. That's a good one. It includes the keywords and, just speaks to what they do and how well they do their work, basically. This one here is so small, but I see it missed a lot. You want to make sure your name, address, and phone number are in the footer of the website, because Google will look at that and match it to your Google listing, and that'll affect your rankings. And then a contact page too should have that. Along with schema, again, this is more of a coder thing, but it's basically a language that you can put in the background of a website page that is a language that search engines understand in all of them. So Bing, Google, they all have a language they understand called schema. And using this language, you can tell them what each page is about, which will make it easier to rank those pages. All right, let's see. I already talked about that. Multimedia. So, you want to have good images, but having videos. So if you can create videos based off of your services, that's going to be great. It also keeps them on the page longer and reduces bounce rate, because everyone likes watching videos. So having all of those on the page is just going to it's going to keep them there longer, and it's going to tell Google, people like this page, basically. All right, so these are just some of the keywords. There are so many more, but I just want to kind of give you an idea of how to understand and set up your pages. So, you can say fencing and decking keywords. You have your city, fencing companies. These ones here on the left are going to be more for the homepage. So fence companies near me is searched like hundreds of thousands of times every month. So you want to make sure the homepage is optimized around that. And then these will be your individual pages. You wouldn't want to say like your city. Well, you could for your home city, as long as you had other city pages. So if it was Baltimore, Baltimore residential fencing, commercial fencing in Baltimore, things like that. Also, separate pages for repair. If you do repair, you can have those pages, or just any kind of add-on, basically. So most people will type in, fence companies or fence companies near me or in my area. So when you write these pages, for example, on a home page, if you're trying to rank for fencing companies, if you had 1,000 words of content, you would want to mention fencing companies 20 to 30 times throughout the content. But you also want to make sure that you add these little add-ons in here as well. So if you're mentioning fencing companies throughout your 1,000 words, you can also just add in there, in my area, fencing, family owned, because you still have fencing companies listed, but you also take advantage of these little add-on keywords where somebody might be talking about that as well. So it just helps you take advantage of both things. Okay, so this is just a local search result. I want to show you kind of what stands out for the ones that are ranking in a big city. So I think this is for Annapolis, or sorry, this is for Ellicott City. What am I talking about? So as you can see here, each one of these is claimed. You can't really tell that from here, but if you click on it, these are claims. Sometimes people won't claim their listing, so you need to make sure to do that if you haven't already. And lots of online reviews. They have a solid amount of reviews. You can absolutely get more than those without a problem if you build it into your workflow to ask for reviews. All of these I checked have a lot of citations, and all of it, their NAP, their name, their address, their phone number is all matching. So that's why they're doing so well here. And also a solid link profile. So they don't have spammy links like we were talking about, things like that. Also, this is the meta title. So we looked at the description, but the meta title is what's in blue here. You want to make sure you have your keyword in that title. Google has cracked down on not listening to that. So if you change this here, you want to make sure you change the H1 header at the top of the page for that as well.